For the sixth day in a row, Victoria has recorded a triple-digit increase in coronavirus cases.
This is not an ordinary weekend. It is anything but that.
14 more Victorians have died, the majority of them from aged care, as new cases surged beyond 700.
3 months later, as Victoria finally begins to emerge from a deadly second wave of COVID-19, the hotel quarantine fiasco that caused it is being picked apart by an independent inquiry.
It may even be that every case of COVID-19 in Victoria in recent weeks could be sourced to the hotel quarantine program.
In the biggest week of hearings in more than a month, the state's most powerful decision makers are being examined.
The decision to engage private security ended up employing thousands of people and costing tens of millions of dollars. Shouldn't we be able to say who made it?
It's a really interesting and important question.
The inquiry was launched in July after outbreaks at 2 hotels were linked to infection control breaches by private security guards. What went wrong and who was responsible are questions at the heart of this examination. Friday, March 27th has emerged as a critical date. It's when Victoria started scrambling, along with other states, to set up hotel quarantine in less than 2 days.
We are now going to have a situation from midnight tomorrow night that you won't be quarantining at home on some honesty basis. You will be quarantined with appropriate support at a hotel.
That afternoon, former Police Commissioner Graham Ashton texted Victoria's top public servant Chris Eccles to ask what role police would play. He then texted his Australian Federal Police counterpart, saying,
"Mate, my advice is that ADF will do passenger transfer and private security will be used. That's the deal set up by our DPC."
At a press conference at 3 p.m, the Premier confirms private security will be used.
Okay. Police, private security, all of our health team will be able to monitor compliance in a much easier way in a static location. Thanks.
A critical planning meeting was then held at the State Control Centre. Multiple government agencies and departments were involved. And it was at this meeting that the use of private security over police or defence troops was discussed, as revealed in this audio recording played at the inquiry.
So private security, Victoria Police, I understand that the preference of Victoria Police or the Chief Commissioner is that private security be the first line of security and police to respond as required. Is that your understanding, Mick?
Yes, it's Mick Granger here. Absolutely, that's our preference.
Who made the call to hire private security is a central question no one seems to know the answer to.
So do you yourself know, Mr Eccles, how it was that a decision was reached that private security would be the front tier of enforcement in the hotel quarantine program?
So a meeting on the...
Emergency Management Commissioner Andrew Crisp says it was the preference of the former Police Commissioner. But Graham Ashton denies a directive came from him and says it was Crisp who told him.
I asked whether police would be doing that and he said no, that the private security would be doing that.
At the inquiry today, Emergency Services Minister Lisa Neville said she found out at a meeting with both commissioners around 2 p.m. that day.
They were a bit ahead of me in terms of the level of knowledge that they actually had. I believe private security was raised by Commissioner Crisp. I'm pretty confident the ADF issues were raised by Mr Ashton.
By that afternoon, the Department of Jobs was searching for private security companies. Messages between staff show they were already worried about dealing with a cowboy industry and didn't want rogue guards prowling the corridors of hotels.
We will be supporting them also by providing members of the Australian Defence Force to assist in the compliance with these arrangements.
The most contentious point in this whole debacle is whether military help was offered to Victoria. Last month, Premier Daniel Andrews told a parliamentary inquiry that ADF support wasn't made available, a statement he stands by.
I think it is fundamentally incorrect to assert that there was hundreds of ADF staff on offer.
But audio reveals that even on the first day the program was being set up, Victorian authorities knew ADF support was an option, but chose not to take it.
We can manage this, so at this stage, we don't see a need for boots on the ground, so to speak.
Just over a week later, emails between Victoria's top bureaucrat and his counterpart in the Prime Minister's office reveal this offer.
I am sure the Commonwealth would be willing to assist Victoria in a similar way if you wanted to reconsider your operating model.
Victoria's Cabinet Secretary Chris Eccles can't remember if he forwarded the offer onto the Premier.
I'm not saying that I didn't. I'm saying that I'm not aware that I did or didn't.
Okay, so you don't have a recollection of it, and there's no email trail that would assist in telling you that you did.
That's correct.
Another key issue facing the inquiry is who was in charge of hotel quarantine. But after weeks of evidence, that's still not clear. Chief Health Officer Brett Sutton told the inquiry it wasn't him.
The specific qualifications and experience that I have is a not inappropriate appointment to the State Controller position for sure.
That's a very cautious way in which to say it. Not inappropriate. It's preferable, isn't it?
It is to me.
The inquiry heard the structure was complicated, as you can see in this chart of Victoria's response to COVID-19. And while the Health Department was technically the agency in control of hotel quarantine, it wasn't in charge of health or human services on the ground.
A response to a major crisis like this was always going to involve complex management arrangements. But at the end of the day, there needs to be somebody in any crisis needs to be the person who's got the ultimate say around this.
Former New South Wales Chief Health Officer Andrew Wilson says Victoria's public health model is different to other states.
It's a very centralised model. That did not seem to have the surge capacity that other states had in terms of being able to bring people on board quickly to do the work. And I would hope that this will be a trigger for the Victorian Government to look at its public health arrangements more broadly.
Problems inside hotel quarantine were evident from the beginning. A month into the program, there were several incidents, including a stand-up verbal fight over masks between security and nursing staff, which resulted in a nurse hiding PPE. A review found large inconsistencies and lack of processes, and sheer lack of coordination. A dispute over who was meant to supply PPE at hotels is also revealed in emails tendered to the inquiry between the Department of Health and Jobs.
Our understanding is the opposite of what you described to me.
DHHS is the lead responsible party for arranging a central supply of PPE.
The Ridges outbreak occurred less than a week later, with an investigation confirming
the hotel and security staff have a very poor understanding of IPC, inappropriate use of PPE.
Within weeks, similar issues were identified at the Stanford Plaza.
Security have been observed to wear full PPE to the toilet, wearing gloves all day, touching their clothes, phones, faces, etc.
And
nurses have tried to address the PPE breaches with security previously and have not succeeded.
3 days later, security guards at that hotel also became infected.
Among the 13 new cases today, 5 are security guards linked to a cluster at the Stanford Plaza Hotel.
More than 30 guards ended up contracting COVID-19 before the virus spread, sparking Victoria's second wave, which has now killed more than 700 people.
The primary objective of any hotel quarantine program is a health objective, preventing the further spread of a disease.
As the inquiry enters its final stages, the evidence has already shown there were known issues with cleaning, infection control and the use of PPE before the outbreaks happened.
The board may well find that these risks were foreseeable and may have actually been foreseen had there been an appropriate level of health focus in the program, from the top down to the bottom.
The Health Minister and the Premier will appear tomorrow and Friday.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.